Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Glad you could make it. Today we got another special installment that's personal to me. Basically, we're going to cover one of the finer restaurants in Lockhart, Texas, next to Austin, Texas, that serves some of the finest barbecue out there, and that's Black's Barbecue. Focus there is ribs. Again, we seem to have a thing for ribs, but Black's does it special, more special than most, and that's what we're going to cover today. Now, as I mentioned, born and raised in Austin, raised also in Lockhart. Exposure to the live music capital of the world before it was the live music capital of the world. My father and stepmother have a lounge there in town, and it looks like I have one guaranteed son-in-law that's a musician, a second one coming along. Anyhow, Lockhart, home of barbecue competitions, home of some of the finest barbecue around. Black's Barbecue was one of my favorites, and at Black's they had these Dino Ribs, which were just simply phenomenally delicious. I can't tell you how good these things are. We're going to try and replicate a little bit of that magic today. So here we go. Alright guys, there's a little bit of a story to this week's video. A couple of weeks ago I was in Washington, D.C., and I happened to be meeting with a congressman from Idaho. We got to talking about, of all things, grilling and smoked meats, the pleasure therein. At that point, he basically said, you know what? You really need to try Snake River Farms. They got some of the best. And he proceeded to describe to me, some of the goodness that he's been involved with respect to Snake River Farms. And I said, you know what? Let me go check those guys out. And I did. And I got to tell you, very interesting. So we're going to be doing effectively some of those Dino Ribs, if you will. That's what we call them around here for Snake River Farms. Should be tasty. Similar, I got my other package from my grocery store, and again, should be tasty. Oh, one other thing, real quick. We're going to be doing these the Black's way, Black's Barbecue. Basically, I got, my dad sent me over some of their rub. He went down the street there in Austin, picked up some, and UPS'd my way. And anyhow, good stuff. This is predominantly a salt and pepper blend with a little bit of red pepper, I think, in there. Now that said, what Black's does differently is they use table salt. They believe in table salt quite a bit. So that's what we're going to have in here. They feel like it helps get the meat right where it needs to be for smoking. Okay, a little bit later to accompany everything, a little bit of the barbecue sauce. So one of the few places in Lockhart when I was growing up that actually made their own barbecue sauce and served it with their meats. Some of the others did, some of the others didn't. Kreitz's didn't, as an example. So that's what we're going to get into. We're going to do it the Black's way. Okay, so as I pat these dry and get things ready for my typical clump dusting form of seasoning, I want to point out the intermuscular fat on this. These things are well marbled. I mean, this is just what makes them extremely attractive and delicious. I mean, you get a sense of flavor on these things that, again, is just exceptional. And when they smoke up and develop that bark, in the smoker, again, it's just fantastic. So here, what we're doing is just a light dusting on top of everything. And again, you can see up close that table salt, very fine. That gets in there a lot quicker, pulls that moisture out a lot quicker. And these things are ready to go in the refrigerator overnight, and that's where they're going. Now, while they're in that fridge, that salt's going to pull out the moisture, and then that meat is going to draw a little bit moisture back into itself, from itself, is what I understand. Anyhow, Black's is good stuff. Okay, so prepping for the cook. Naturally, you got to go with post oak. That's just a Texas thing. In Texas, brisket, ribs like this, post oak. And here we are. Yeah, this worked out well overnight, and it is looking really good. We're going to smoke these on low, 180, and we're going to make that go overnight. Now, the indirect side of the dual fire runs a little bit warmer on the right-hand side of the grill there. And I'm going to do these on the top rack because that gets the best smoke going. So I'm going to put that slightly thicker short set of ribs over there on that right-hand side. And then that way it's going to get a little bit more of that heat, maybe shrink down that fat a little bit quicker on that side. Really want to protect the Snake River Farms on this one. Not taking any chances on this prime piece of meat. This is a Wagyu set of ribs, actually, so nice set. Anyhow, I also got another set of beef ribs. These are ribs from a rib roast. My buddy Charlie cut these off for me over at Randall's, and I got to tell you, these look really good. Looking forward to this. And we're going to do these a little 3-2-1 style, a la the Meat Church way that they recommended. I've tried it once before. It came out great. Doing it here again. So in this time, we're going to season that a little bit more with the blacks on this one. And again, a light seasoning on all sides. And then we're going to throw that in the smoker. But first, we're going to let that rest in the fridge as well. The plan here is to try and time this a little bit right. So what I want to do is time it to where I'm within a certain period of the dino ribs coming off. So my plan here is to be able to put this in on the tail end of the dino rib cook, and then effectively, as I get my 6 hours on this set of ribs, the dino ribs will be completely done, resting in the oven inside. So that's the target anyway. Okay, so again, running these overnight got me super curious in the morning as to how these things look. There's the pull down on the pellets for that overnight cook. Really didn't take much. Now when I walked around and picked that lid up, holy Moses, look at this. I mean, good gravy, the dark mahogany and the pullback starting on that. The smell was just phenomenal. I could not believe how gorgeous those looked. Yes, I did swap the position on those things in the middle of the night. Okay, on for one of the stars of the show here as well. Aunt Grace's peach cobbler. This is a pretty straightforward cobbler recipe. I urge you to hit the pause button, print that out. I want to walk through these steps in detail, so I'm not going to read that to you here. I know you guys can read, or at least most of you anyway. So anyhow, let me show you how this comes together. First, we start mixing it all up. Basically, sugar, water, peaches, simmer that. And this is going to be simmering for about, good 10 minutes or so. That just means get it to a light rolling boil while I'm melting my butter in my cast iron pan. And one of the things I did special that's different than Aunt Grace is I put a little brown sugar into that butter. And what I find is that gives me a crisp crust at the end, which I really like. And yeah, mixing a little bit of vanilla into that batter as well. That batter comes together. We dump that into the cast iron, and this is important to let that butter come up around it. And then next, you want to gently spoon the fruit on top of the batter. Okay, now the batter's going to cook up over that fruit. You'll see that here in a little bit. But I also want to get that syrup in there. Again, that helps crisp it. Oh, and don't forget to sprinkle the cinnamon on there. That's very important. Next, we're going to put this at 350 on the direct side, and we're going to bake that until we get an internal temperature of 200 F. Now that may be about 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, let's check on the ribs. Now at this point, I'm ready to actually put those beef back ribs on there. But wow, are those things looking good. So we're going to put these on the lower rack on the left-hand side, and I'm going to probe out that short one because it was looking done, and you know what? It was done. So, you know what? This is going to get wrapped up for resting in the oven inside, and yeah, we're going to put a little pat of butter on that and let that sit for a while. Now, did you know that Cobbler had a good friend? It does, and that's Maw-Maw's ice cream. Yes, my grandmother's sister, Aunt Grace, did the peach cobbler, and my grandmother did the ice cream, and that's what we're going to walk through today. So what you see laid out here is all the tools and all the ingredients that are ready to go, and so we're going to step into putting this together. Okay, as we get this going, one of the first things we're going to do is effectively pour a little bit of milk in with the eggs, because I like to whisk that up with a little bit of milk as I begin heating the milk. Okay, so we're going to get that going there, and then we're going to start adding some of those dry ingredients into the milk. That's the salt, the sugar, and the flour and whatnot. And one of the things you're going to see a lot of here is whisking. We're going to whisk this all the way through and through. In part, a lot of that whisking is just to make sure that we don't have anything stuck to the bottom or starting to burn on the bottom as we go. And I'm heating this up on medium heat, and I'm going to raise it a little bit to medium high. But as it's still a little bit cool, that's when I'm taking the time to whisk in and incorporate those eggs. But eventually we're going to get this thing to where it's steaming and starting to come to a boil like you see here. That's when we know we're done with this portion of the cook. Basically, we're going to remove this from the heat, we're going to set it off to the side, Let that cool down as much as you can, and then add the evaporated milk. Now, honestly, I didn't know what evaporated milk was for a long time, and then after I learned this recipe, I learned it was for ice cream. So I'm pretty happy knowing that now, and now you know it too. So as we get through this and we get that all mixed in, the next thing we're going to do is add that quart of half and half. So we pour that all the way in and we just keep whisking. Again, this is an exercise in whisking. Now comes my favorite part, adding that vanilla. And yeah, I usually go a little bit heavy on the vanilla. In this recipe though, one of the things where I do it a little bit different than my grandmother is I put in some fresh vanilla beans, specifically the seeds of the vanilla bean. I split those in half and I use the edge of my knife to scrape out the seeds, and I get as much of that off as I can and just whisk that in as well as I can so that that gets mixed up all the way in there. Now here's the part where it takes a little bit of courage, pouring this thing into the churn. Yeah, you got to get that up and in there. Usually I do that over the sink, but this time I did that right where you see. And then it's important to top this up with whole milk. You just want to bring that up to the freeze line or up to the near top there, and then put your dash in. Now at this point, we're getting ready to throw this into our ice bucket, and we got to get our ice ready. Usually I pound that ice out so that it's loosened up in the bag. And then once I got the churn inside the ice bucket, next stop is to start dumping that ice in. As we do this, I tend to cover it with some of that rock salt as I get halfway up, okay? Because I want to make sure I get that salt in there so it can start melting that ice and effectively cooling down that churn as best as possible. Cover it again with ice, and then cover it again with some of that ice cream salt or rock salt. Put the motor in place. Yeah, no more hand cranking. I'm digging that. Plug that in and get it going. Now this will start the churn, and it'll get to moving that thing there for a good while. At this point, you just got to be patient and let the motor do the work. Now I do cover this with a towel just to make sure that I'm keeping that cool, insulated, and letting this do its thing. Now eventually, you're going to have to top this off with more ice and more salt. Just keep an eye on that and do it. Check it about every 15 minutes. But what you're going to notice is there's going to be a sound that's going to start to happen. Eventually, you're going to start to hear the motor start to struggle. And when that struggle begins, that's when you know it's ready. Okay, now that we know we're there, it's time to pull the motor off, put the cap back on, cover this with a little bit more ice and some rock salt, and like any good brisket, we're going to let it rest. Oh wait, this is ice cream. We're going to let this rest just the same. It's going to firm up a little bit more as we go. Okay, let's go see how those ribs are doing. Now at this point, we got to check on those back ribs to make sure that they're doing good and see if they're ready for the braise stage. With respect to the Snake River Farm Dino Ribs, we got to just check on the temp of those. Now these turned out to be ready for the braise, so I got that foil ready, and yeah, this was starting to firm up. I mean, starting to basically get to the point where we were ready. Not firm. It was getting done. Now that we had the ribs hitting their temperature and that probe was going in and out like butter, actually it felt like more like cotton candy. It was time to get these into their resting state. So yeah, speaking of butter, we're going to put a little bit of butter on top of this one. We're going to bundle this up and then put this inside in the oven and let it rest in the warmer as well. Now I have to comment, I mean, the bark on this was absolutely gorgeous. The aroma, absolutely gorgeous. And I can't tell you how soft this was in terms of that Wagyu just going in and out like cotton candy. Okay, now as for these, yeah, we're going to sauce these up with the meat mitch. I'm addicted to that stuff now. That meat mitch sauce just seems to be working. And yeah, these things were looking pretty sexy as well. Too sexy. Mouth-watering sexy. Yeah, I was just falling in love here. And yeah, look at that smoke ring. I got those inside to cut those up first.
just to take a peek at how good that was coming out. And it did. It came out really well. Okay, those short ones, yeah, look at the smoke ring on that. That bark was excellent. Tender as you could imagine. Tasted phenomenal. But again, we had one thing that was just really a standout phenomena here. These Snake River Dino Ribs. I mean, it just sliced it, like butter. The smoke ring was awesome. And then just so super tender. Now that was one ribbalicious dinner. And just when you think you couldn't get any better, well, I gotta tell you, this was a crowd pleaser extraordinaire. That creamy ice cream, the warm peach cobbler. Yeah, we had a happy crowd that night. Uh-oh. There's that sound again. Time for your moment is in. Here we are back at Black's. Oh yeah. This was about 12 years ago. And yeah, I was a wannabe pitmaster at that point. There's my father-in-law at the time digging into one of those big dino ribs. And I got a little taste of that too. So tasty. My buddy Jim, he had more than he could handle.
So what are we going to do today to your hair?
I'm not sure. I did see the picture of that guy on the way in. You think you could make me look as good as him?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Okay. So what do you think about the haircut?
You tell me.
And yeah, do me a favor, like and subscribe and give me some comments. Truly appreciate it.